And what's making headlines with the great Phil Tarrant, who is in the office in North Sydney, the Momentum Media office. And for those of you that don't know Momentum, if you're in real estate, you know REB. If you're in mortgage broking, you know Better Business and you know the advisor. If you're in property investment, it's, what is it? Smart Property Investment.
Property investment. That's it.
Now, how are you, Phil?
I'm good, mate. I'm all right. You look like you're in downtown Hong Kong, mate. You're about to go get some dumplings or something or other, are you?
Hong Kong, yes. we're close to where it all began, Wuhan. Well, I got to tell you, Phil, talking about Wuhan, do you know, and we might have touched on it last week, apparently the divorce rate in Wuhan is sort of gone up, or inquiries to people inquiring to lawyers about making applications to get divorced is skyrocketed.
Yeah, I think it's happening in the Western world as well. You know, people are going, oh, hang on a second, I'm spending all my time with my partner. I don't particularly like them anymore. So that hasn't been my experience by any means. It's we're really enjoying our family this COVID lockdown. It's actually given us a whole new perspective of you know, just the joys of family and sort of slowing down a little bit and spending time together. You know, it's one of the upside benefits of the lockdown, I think, is spending time with loved ones.
And Phil, it's not only spending time with them, it's also spending time with them not actually out there doing normal things, because the normal distractions that you normally do, like for instance, families normally go to shopping centers or families go to a party or a barbecue. It's now you're on your own, your family's together, there's no interruptions, there's no friends that are going to be talking to your kids while you're talking to them. It has been the perfect opportunity. In some regards, it's a bit like, you know, a higher being throwing a grenade over and saying, try this for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, look, you know, I think a lot of people are enjoying the experience. Some people are challenged by the experience, but I'm sure you're in a whole bunch of WhatsApp groups where with different people and everyone's sharing all the different memes going around right now. It's you know, I like to think that most people are taking the lighter side of this and seeing the positives in it, even though it's not a particularly nice time. But you know, yeah, for me personally, you know, one of your points, some of the best gifts come badly wrapped, Tom. And you know, for me personally, during this period of time, it's you know, it's an interesting time to experience. And you know, this sort of generation is once in 100-year sort of pandemic. You know, I think I'll be a lot better person as a result of this. Bit more scar tissue, and that's pretty good. And it's something that I know a lot of real estate agents and property investors and property managers will benefit from, to actually go through this, as long as you do have the right attitude to it. So, you know, hats off to you, mate. The stuff that you're doing through Facebook and Insta to your network, it's inspiring, it's engaging, it's pragmatic, and it's real. And I know you really are a crutch to a lot of people during this period of time. And
so Phil, I remember Gary Vaynerchuk gave advice when I caught up with him doing that video, and he said, there are going to be times when you're going to stop focusing on the sale and you got to focus on building your brand, because there'll be times when there's no sales happening, but there'll be times that you can actually build the brand because everyone's attention is there. And what you should be doing is using that opportunity, not reaching out and trying to flog things, but reaching out and saying, here, I'm actually giving you value. And what actually happens is, when the sales will take place at a later time, you've positioned yourself as, hey, this is the company that was there when things were tough. And, you know, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I run an online business, Phil, and that's been better than every other aspect of my business. But someone that was structured to do 220 talks, I mean, I'm very fortunate because I've got a number of contracts where I get multiple talks. And in addition to that, I get booked out very heavily in the real estate industry. So I was scheduled to do 213 talks. I had done 40 till March the 10th. So I was on track to do those. I've already in my head factored in, there's a strong possibility I might not do any of the remaining 160. There's a possibility that conferences won't physically happen for the calendar year 2020. So what I've done is I focused on what's my opportunity. I've lost the auctions, I've lost the speaking, I'm going to focus on the online, I've gone in and I've done a big overhaul and rejuvenation on the real estate gym. I've launched a few online products that's coming out next week. Cheaper products, cheaper yielding. So you do what you can. And I know that you guys haven't stopped. Every day I wake up, I'm getting more or less the 3 or 4 emails I get. And for anyone that is watching this, if you want to have your finger on the pulse on what's going on, and particularly the one that I look at is the REB one, because that's most of my life. That comes out every morning, Phil. REB comes out to real estate, I think off the top of my head, around 6 or 7 in the morning.
Yeah, first thing in the morning. And, and that very much is the catalyst for our discussion, is that we actually talk about what's going on in the news, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Tom, the point you made around, the pivot, and the pivot for many people is a revenue pivot in COVID, but for more people, it's a mindset pivot. And what you explained right then about prioritizing the things that you normally wouldn't prioritize as a result of this situation, what you're talking about, it resonates absolutely with the real estate industry, is building corporate memory. It's at this point of time when you can affirm your brand across your marketplace. And now real estate is very localized. So, it's relatively, it's a lot easier to do that on a sort of broad spectrum across Australia. But when you look at organizations like Coles and Woolworths right now, they're building corporate memory during this period of time. And even industries and organizations which are in a massive state of flux, and I think about Qantas, for example, and Virgin, at this point in time, they're building corporate memory by highlighting the role and the value of their people and the attitudes of their people, irrespective of environment. So you're seeing this at a corporate level, but real estate can learn a lot from this right now.
Virgin's an interesting one, Phil. I don't know if you've been following the story. The Australian government has decided, no, you guys work it out. You've mismanaged your business, and this has probably just tipped you over the edge. You've got foreign investors. You work it out. We're not in the business of saving businesses that had management issues in the past. What's your view?
We've got here at Momentum Media, Tom, we've got a big sort of aviation business. So we're right across this, and I'm watching it really closely. It's a really, and again, I'll bring it back to real estate. Qantas and Virgin are fierce competitors. It's like a Ray White office in Blacktown, side by side next door to a Star Partners in Blacktown, right? They eyeball each other every single day, and they are absolutely fierce competitors. So Qantas has been running a particular program, number one, reaffirming the value of their brand, and it's 100 years with Qantas in Australia right now. So it's a respected brand. It's part of our sovereignty as a nation, airlines, and everyone has an emotive connection with it. They're aggressive against Virgin. So they've been running their own power play to government, pretty much saying, do not bail out Virgin, because if you do, Qantas is going to be a competitor to the Commonwealth, and that doesn't suit anyone. And that's been the rhetoric. And for the government, the federal government we're talking about, and the states are a little bit different, but the federal government doesn't want to get into the business of running an airline. Number one, it used to have Qantas, it was privatized. Number two, it didn't want to set a precedent that other major organizations can come to the Commonwealth to bail them out, for them to become major shareholders. So they've played it firm, the government, and I think it's realpolitik at its best, because Virgin by and large is a reasonably large and sophisticated business. It's been around for a long time, 20 years in Australia. The government made their point clear that they wanted the two options in Australia to support choice for Australian flyers. That's really good. But they knew that someone else would come in to buy it out without them having to do it. So they've won on a number of different fronts. Now, there's 10 plus bidders now looking at the Virgin business who are going to pick up a pretty good deal right now. It's heavily in debt. It's only turned a profit once in 10 years. So, the government is mandating in many ways that it wants the two choices here in Australia. The private equity is in there. There's some foreign investment in there. And to the big point to the government, they went, 90% of Virgin is foreign owned. So why should we be bailing out foreign airliners who have a stake in that particular business at the expense of the Australian taxpayer? That includes me and you. So it's been interesting story.
So Virgin, I've got to tell you, I mean, I fell for it as well. They did a very good PR campaign where, we're the good guys. You're going to sort of get smashed if we go. Qantas is going to raise it up. They kept using the term. They don't say Qantas, they say the competitor. So you can tell there's tension and competition between these two businesses. It's so obvious in the dialogue that they're using. But what's interesting, and Josh Frydenberg said it, this is not a case of answer. This is not a case of this airline is going. They're shareholders overseas. Virgin's not going to disappear, and it's not going to be a case where we're going to have one airline in Australia and that airline is going to go off and create a ticket price from Sydney to Melbourne, return being $2,000. That's not what's going to happen. What was going to happen is that they were going to chip in. We knew prior to COVID-19, Virgin things weren't good for them. What did you say? One profit in 10 years?
One profit in 10 years, and their losses were considerable. You're talking, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just not like, they break even. They were bleeding a lot of money because it's very expensive to build an aviation network. Now, and we're sort of off topic of real estate right now, but there is some lessons from this, Tom. And I imagine you can probably pull some really good lessons out of this, the way that you do it. For 20 years, they've been building a distribution network and a footprint and a brand. And it's a good brand, Virgin. Let's just remember, 90% of Virgin is not owned by Richard Branson. They're foreign airlines who have no connectivity, but everyone has the emotive appeal for Virgin. 20 years to build that distribution network. Now, what they're saying is that what is most likely to happen is that Virgin will remain a domestic airline, and they may do flights out to New Zealand, but they're probably not going to you're not going to be flying Virgin Australia out to LA. They used to have routes up into Asia. So they'll redefine their proposition. They'll get good at what they do really, really well. They'll get cost savings and efficiencies around it, and therefore move back into it. But like real estate, it's times like this when you really can rethink what you're doing as an organization, how you see the world, your resourcing, your structure, your capabilities, and affect change. It's happening in aviation, it's happening in financial services, and it's happening in real estate.
Yeah, well, again, I've had that text message come through saying who drove your change to technology, your CEO, your CTO, or COVID-19? And it's a classic scenario that scenarios beyond an employee or an executive, but a thing that came totally unexpected is actually driving businesses to rethink their model, their cost model, the way they do things. And there's a beautiful line, Phil, and it is called zero-based thinking. And zero-based thinking says, assuming we were starting today from fresh with a reset button, would we have been doing this practice that we have in our business, 20 years ago? Because a lot of businesses do stuff, they don't even think about it. They just know that this is the way we do it, right? And a really good question to be asking any business person, real estate, mortgage broker, or anyone that's involved in providing any product or services, is what you're currently doing. If you weren't doing it, would you actually be implementing that practice into your life now? And if the question is no, if the answer is no, you probably should look at, moving away from it, eliminating it. And I think what COVID-19 has done is it's fast-tracked that thinking.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Tom. And I wouldn't get transfixed on that only applying to your business life. I think it's probably more pertinent for your personal life. And I've known you for years, and we spoke about in our first What's Making Headlines last week, which was really popular, by the way, which was good.
Yes.
This is about it starts at home. This sort of stuff. It starts personally, and this is the time for you to really restructure how you live your life. Routine is critical right now, and I follow a really tight routine. My routine is I get up early, I get to work, I do a particular type of work, then a lot of meetings, a lot of TV, a lot of podcasting stuff. Then I'll do a lot of internal meetings, and I'm making sure now that I get out of the office at 6 o'clock every evening. I walk down, I meet my wife, I walk home, I spend an hour and a half playing Lego with the kids, get them to bed, then I'm back into work, right? This routine for me is really working, but it's simplifying my life considerably. It's allowing me to be focused at any given time, applying the right mindset and thoughts to any particular task at that right point in time. And, I've always been wired that way, but COVID-19 is a catalyst for refining that as well. And I've got it really tight right now. And I know you're very routine orientated. Routine will set you free, right?
Routine will set you free, and sometimes you actually need to do a reset on some of those routines because they can become habitual, and they once served a purpose, right? Like, for instance, right now, Phil, I don't need the 5 a.m. club, which is great. because I don't have to wake up at 5 to do what I've got to do so I can still get to an airplane. No, I can actually sleep a little bit longer, and I can enjoy in the evening an extra hour or two to myself doing whatever I choose to do, consuming content on an iPad or that. And if I enjoy it, I enjoy it. So there's things. But I'm like you, Phil. I've actually noticed a new pattern has emerged in some of in my daily practices, because it's been like 5.5, 6 weeks now. So the first week was a bit funny, but now all of a sudden you've got this pattern. You know roughly what time you'll be doing what in the morning. You know roughly what you're going to eat and where you're going to eat it from, because the normal scenario of going and sitting in a place is not there. So it's good. Now, Phil, can I ask you, like, we're going to go through, this show is about real estate, it's about mortgages, it's about money, it's about property investment, and it's about life, right? What's been making headlines for your organization?
Yeah, so you know, and a shout out to my team here across our property and mortgages and property investment area. We've got a Tom, you know them. We're really committed to delivering quality content to these markets. So yeah, they've done a lot of work. They provide a really good brief for us from a lot of the work that we're doing now. You know what the most popular story was on Smart Property Investment the last week? It was a story about me and you talking about what's making headlines.
Wowee. Okay. Imagine where me and you are going to be in a year's time.
It's crazy, mate. You know, it's yeah, and like, you know, this is supposed to be a bit more technical, is where it started, but we're talking more about life than what is actually headlines. But you know, I'm happy, and I'll be led by our viewers, Tom, if they want us to talk about aviation and what that means for real estate markets. I can be led anyway, or habits or high performance. You know, we can go that way. But I got a lot of satisfaction out of the fact that people enjoyed our commentary and our views and opinions on what's going on. And the story was around our landlords being taken advantage of. And, you know, we're obviously pro property as an asset class for obvious reasons. I'm a property investor. You're a property investor. It works well for us. But I think people enjoyed our frank response towards the dichotomy between people who were generally struggling through COVID-19 and then those that were being opportunistic. And I think we're pretty firm on our views towards those we thought were being a bit opportunistic.
Well, Phil, I've got to say, like a week later, and a lot of conversations I've had with some of the big property management businesses across Australia, I'm pleased to let you know it seems to look, it's not as chaotic as what we thought, right? There appears to be, most people are sort of doing what is expected of them. I don't have many real estate businesses that are telling me they've done big whopping reductions of 50% in residential. I mean, we're talking about, you know, in some instances around 20%. That seems to be the number of when a tenant's got problems, they're coming in and they're sort of saying, hey, here's my situation. And even the tenants now are a little bit educated to know, hey, I can't just ring up and say, I've got problems. They sort of got the information. You better get a pack together. You better have evidence and proof, and you better be reasonable about it. And it appears to be roughly around 20% for the challenging cases on the reduction.
Yeah. Well, what I've seen in you know, our portfolio at Smart Property Investment is, I think I've had 2 or 3 people. It's quite a large portfolio. We've had 2 or 3 people give us their notice that they, you know, they're on month at the moment because they're outside of their leases. They've been there a long time, saying, you know, we're moving out of the property. And I've only had one contact from a property manager saying, hey, look, the tenant is struggling right now, just a heads up, but they're trying to make do. So, you know, we haven't been overly impacted, but, you know, it's probably, you know, 10-15% of our portfolio has had some impact. But you know what, that's not too bad, to be fair, you know. But I still stand by our points when we had that discussion last week. You know, I won't tolerate people taking the piss in circumstances, but I'm very conscious of genuine hardship, and I think me and you have a great opportunity through vehicles like this and the Smart Property Investment Show and the REB podcast to have these conversations, just to help people frame exactly how that should sit.
Yeah, I saw some disturbing messages 3 weeks ago that have been sent to me by private social media groups that had members that were tenants, and orchestrating, and the dialogue was there. It was very militant. They're talking about, hey, we're going to have a strike on this day, we're going to collude together, and we can hit one landlord at a time. Particularly if there's an owner that owns a block of units, you get all the tenants together and they actually use their market forces. I mean, you've talked about ever using market forces, and collusion. That was a classic case where you get all these tenants together, go to an owner and say, do this to us, or we're going to do this. But that has eased off. That has eased off. The commercial one, Phil, is a little bit different because, I can't help it. I'll walk past a business like, Orange Theory Fitness or Anytime Fitness or a naturopath. I'm not quite sure if naturopaths are essential services or what's the one I saw? Oh, I saw another one where they do your nails, right? They're shut, and I'm thinking, say, you own that building, these people have closed down. What's the equation look like? They're getting no money coming in. The landlord, well, they're going to have to do something here because there's not commercial tenants lining up 10 deep to actually take that shop. So what's your take on that commercial side of it?
Well, it's the same thing, and you're seeing this right across the nation. It's a state-based legislation about how the different sort of fair tradings and other legislation bodies are saying around residential tenancy or commercial tenancies. It's by and large the same. On the commercial resi side, but it fluctuates state on state. If you can prove a genuine reduction to your revenue, and we spoke about this last week, the government, and the government being the state government, for example, with federal oversight, encourages you to negotiate. So it's the principle of, just be fair and be pragmatic in the current situation. Organizations, commercial landlords need to be flexible and, where required, offer those rebates or those reductions for a period of time. But it's got to be based again on merit. A nail salon, they cannot operate. A gym, they cannot operate. There is no income coming in whatsoever. But this is the challenge, right? You look at the issue as a business owner, of which I am, or just an average person on the street, and you go, yeah, cut them a break. But you know what? It's a business for the landlord as well. They've got to keep the lights on. Everyone is involved. And you see some of the rhetoric coming out, particularly in Queensland. We spoke about it last week, where what the Palaszczuk government was putting together in terms of how it was going to treat residential tenancy was extremely sided towards the tenant, and the landlord had nothing whatsoever. But at least that's balanced out a little bit. And I think the saying was around, it's got to be fair for both, right? So that's where it's landed. I think that's a pragmatic way to look at it. But, the state governments need to be giving more breaks where required. And one of the stories we have here, Tom, was on Smart Property Investment yesterday, actually. It's inefficient, unreasonable, and unfair. REI NSW slams stamp duty. So, this is CEO Tim McKibben. You probably know him.
Yes.
He's a good operator. He's been in that role for a while. Pretty much going, he's sort of looking for a 75% cut on stamp duty in New South Wales. And the reason why is to stimulate market activity. Pulling out numbers on I think it's, the average, a median price of, 850, 860 grand. You're ponying up a considerable amount of money for stamp duty for residential sales transaction. Cut that by 70%. You're going to get more buyers in the game. And this is his point for trying to stimulate activity and get markets moving again. I don't know. You're a lot closer to this stuff than me. What's your thoughts on that?
So Phil, stamp duty is the thing that actually not only affects buyers, sellers, it affects a whole industry, because you've got you've got a barrier of entry that apart from having to buy the product, you've got to pay the privilege to be able to buy the product. And often, Phil, people are actually going off and they're borrowing money for the stamp duty. And I can pretty much tell you that one of the reasons why transactions across Australia have declined per year, right? So you used to turn around and have a look at the average turnover of what someone would live in an area has dramatically increased. I don't have the exact numbers, and they vary from various parts of Australia. But the main cause of it is the transaction costs to come in and out of real estate, which don't occur in the equities market, right? And that basically means that and it's interesting because if you turn around and you think, if I was in government, I'd be modeling and saying, hang on a second, what if we reduce this, but we ended up increasing the amount of turnover of real estate? You know, it's the classic example of drop the price, will you get more transactions? So the government can actually win out as well in the process by more people actually selling. But I think it needs to be looked at 100%.
Yeah, and his point also wasn't just around making it more feasible for buyers to get more activity in the market. His point was around, and representing the real estate industry as he does, you're going to keep more agents in jobs, agents more active, but then all the associated people involved in that supply chain of a real estate transaction, auctioneers, people that make signs, marketing companies, you know, advertising, you know, all this sort of stuff, that whole ecosystem. And let's remember, Tom, you know, property is the backbone, the economic backbone of this nation. We need properties to transact. So you have the industry itself of real estate, agents, officers, people that make signs, marketing, communications, all that sort of stuff. Then you have the mortgage sector as well, you know, and when you look at how we are navigating COVID-19 as a nation, and you look back to, you know, one of the most immediate crises that is part of our lifetime, the GFC. One of the reasons why Australia performed so well during that was the prudential oversight and governance of our major lenders. You know, the big four banks, they pushed us through, you know, and you look at any of the balance sheets of the banks, where do they make most of their money? It's from their mortgage and real estate orientated work. So we need to get the market moving. And, you know, I share the sentiments. I'm not qualified enough to say, well, 75% reduction in stamp duty, or I don't know the budget of the state government, but, you know, I think this smart thinking is going to help maneuver things moving forward. And one of the other stories here, Tom, which is connected with that point, is DA game changer on its way for New South Wales homeowners. So this is another piece of innovation, which is this is actually being put in place, is to be able to lodge DAs electronically to speed through DA transactions. Now, if you're getting more DAs approved, it's increasing tradespeople doing work, real estate transactions, and all the associated supply chain connected with it. So, you know, what forced your business to evolve the most during, you know, to move to digital? COVID-19. You know, this is another bit of innovation.
I love that. That's great. So I wasn't aware of that actually being talked about this week. But electronic DAs, getting rid of the friction, making it easier. Let's have a look at who wins in that. The owner wins in that. The builder wins in that. The architect wins in that. The landscaper wins in that. I mean, everyone wins in that process, which is great because you've got people spending money. You got people being paid. And I've got to tell you, Phil, in the world that we're in, that's what we need more of in the next 12 months. We need that currency changing hands with people.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. So pretty much it is 42 councils will be required to implement e-planning from 1 July this year, Tom, which will be extended to encompass the remaining 86 councils by the middle of the year. So it starts off in Metro Sydney, Newcastle, Central Coast, and Illawarra, where it's going to get going. And you know what? That's also going to be feeding in cash into the coffers of the local councils as well, right? Because there is you know, a fee around the DA, but
correct contributions.
Everyone wins out of it. You know, these incremental changes to how we generate income in this economy coming out of COVID-19. And let's be clear also, we're doing pretty well as a nation compared to our international counterparts in terms of flattening the curve. So hats off to the people who are making those decisions, and to all Australians, I believe, who are, you know, by and large being quite conscious of the social distancing requirement to our Australia's
done well. The Kiwis have done well. But I've got to tell you, Phil, we got to keep things in perspective. I went off and Googled it myself. In Australia, we've had 75 people. We've had 75 people that have died of COVID-19, and even one is not good. 75 people in 5 weeks. The same 5 weeks, we had 5,000 people. 5,000 people die of cancer in Australia. The same period, 5,070 people. Gets worse. Next month, There won't be 70 COVID. It's going to be a lot less, but there's still going to be 5,000 of cancer. Next, not only that, you look at the demographic, the 75, you look at the average median age of the 75 with COVID, and you look at the average median age with that of cancer, and you begin to realize, hey, hang on a second, it's not good, but in perspective, it's probably not as big an issue that it has been in people's lives, right? And part of the issue for me, Phil, has been the info pandemic to it. The fact that, you know, there's a lot of people, whether you're a mortgage broker, a business person, or even a person that hasn't got any lockdown rules, you've actually mentally sort of been off track because you're looking at this and you sort of move away from your normal day-to-day practices. So there is a psychological aspect to it. Most people actually get the psychological illness, not the physical illness of COVID-19. And can I ask you, Phil, before you move on to any other story, what's your view here? I mean, surely there's got to be a hangover. Like in the next few weeks, the dialogue is that we're slowly going to open things up in Australia. But you know, some of these businesses, are they going to reopen again, Phil, that we've seen? Will there be businesses that will shut? Or is it going to be a classic case where hey, it was hailing for 6 weeks, the hail stopped, we're back to normal? Or do you think it's going to be, hey, it's been hailing for 6 weeks and we got to repair all this damage now?
Yeah, there's a number of ways I could answer that, Tom, and I could sort of look towards the markets or the capital markets and that deep dive into the economic factors which are going to shape Australia's recovery around it. And the Reserve Bank governor was speaking about this only a couple of days ago. You know, they're relatively optimistic that we will bounce back to a you know, what was normal over time. Now, some of the numbers coming out of Macquarie Bank, for example, when it comes to property price values, they're not as dire as what some people are painting. So, you know, I can confidently say, and no doubt you agree with this, is that Australia will bounce back from that. It's just a matter of when. You know, and to your point around perspective, you know, I do it organically because of my experience. You do it yourself. You've got your own experience. You're able to sort of get up and out and think more laterally and strategically about putting things into perspective. Whereas a lot of people are still down in the weeds, fighting, battling. They're unsure. They're disconnected. They don't know what to do. A lot of businesses that went into this period of time will not emerge from that. But whether or not COVID-19 was the catalyst for that or something else would have been, it's just the nature of business in Australia. You look at the numbers, I think there's only 3,500 large businesses in Australia. And by a large business, I think it's you know, not an SME, so over a couple of hundred people, right? I think there's 50,000 SMEs in Australia, and every other business, so a couple of million of them in Australia, are a micro to small business.
Yes.
Put that into perspective. So I think small to medium, so the medium businesses and large businesses will reopen. They'll be hurt, right? Look at Virgin, look at Flight Centre, look at some of these other big organizations, right? They're you know, they have debt issues. They're listed on the stock exchange. They've got all these different parameters. They will bounce back in a way because they have the clout, the scale, the sophistication to do that. There might be a couple of scalps, but medium businesses and large businesses, by and large, should be able to emerge from this. That's the micro single businesses or small businesses which will probably struggle the most. But you could argue that a lot of them were under threat and under stress and under pressure anyway through, you know, poor management or wrong sales structure or whatever, or just a bad idea. That it's going to happen anyway. 1 in 2 businesses fail in the first couple of years, right? You know, this is just going to be part of the story. So, you know, my view, and particularly for real estate agents, and you're much more qualified to chat about it for me, those well-run businesses prior to COVID-19 will emerge out of COVID-19 probably stronger as a result of it, you know. But you got to get out of the weeds. You need to know your numbers. You've got to actually have the tactics and strategy in place to get it going. But look at the absolute market fundamentals around it. You know, property. If you're in the business of property fluctuates up and down, always has done. You know, just be that company that's responsive and reactive rather than a dinosaur and looking into the past. Now, and that's a really good segue, Tom, where I've landed. REB story on the 21st of April, so the last Tuesday, has COVID-19 created an opportunity for agents? Now, this is a story, I don't know if you know Neil Goswell, LJ Hooker. He believes that agents who have not used technology are being left behind during COVID-19 due to additional time taken to administrative tasks. So he's saying that most agents spend 40% of the time on admin when most of that can be replaced by tech. So if you're not thinking that way right now, you're probably not going to be one of those companies that emerge out of it.
Yeah, well, what's becoming very obvious is there's a heap of tech companies. Some are smoke and mirrors. Some have got substance to them. Everyone's jumping in there, trying to get the attention of the customer, of the real estate agent. And I think it's Neil, did you say, from LJ Hooker?
That's right. Neil Goswell.
Neil, so I don't know Neil, but I do agree with what he's saying is, example, let me give you an example. John McGrath said to me the other day, it's becoming obvious to me that we should be doing Zoom sales meetings. Why drag people around all over the place? We say that this is there. It's becoming obvious to me that we should be having our training sessions being done through Zoom. It's becoming obvious now that you can actually go off and potentially create the availability through online auctions to buyers that might choose to actually be working and actually can participate in the auction and not being there. That's been fast-tracked. You know, artificial intelligence. It's obvious to me that maybe someone doesn't need to have a personal assistant going through a database when AI can actually go in and say, high probability, high probability, high probability. Here are the people you need to speak to, like, you know, companies like Rita that Sarah Bell runs, which I went off and did some training with them, and I looked at it and I thought to myself, hang on a second, why would you need a PA to go into the database and say, ring these 30 people if you're a lead agent? Why wouldn't you have technology that turns around and actually can say, this person bought a home this time last year, give him a call, it's an anniversary call. These are the sorts of things. And part of it, Phil, part of it is I look at it my own self. Because of the extra time you've got, you go off and you learn the hack yourself. You know, you've got time. You don't have to rush to another appointment. So you go on a YouTube and you say, okay, how do I edit an MP4 and then upload it quickly? And you watch a quick video and you end up doing it. And I think that's what's actually happened during this period. The necessity has given you the time to be able to go off and do it. And you know what you're like. If you're curious and you have a go, you normally learn something.
You will do. And a lot of people get obsessed with this idea around having a side hustle, which is a real sort of Silicon Valley, California origin, which has become quite prevalent here in Australia. And a side hustle might be, you know, riding your push bike around, delivering some Ubers, right? But, you know, for all of those agents, all of those up and coming agents and even principals right now, with more time on your side, thinking about how you can integrate and implement a better tech backbone into your business is absolutely critical. Remove those admin costs or redeploy them somewhere else on more revenue generating activities. But if you want a side hustle right now, learn the skills that you need in the new market post COVID-19. Editing a video, like you edit a video, spend 10 minutes editing yourself, get it up immediately rather than letting it languish there for a day or two, waiting for someone else to do it for you. Get involved and do it yourself. Now, this is the new side hustle, I reckon. I'm just thinking about this on the fly, Tom, but you know, your new side hustle should be getting new skills to make you better at what you do as a professional. You know,
I agree 100%, because why wouldn't you just be the best you can be in plan A versus what some people do and say, hey, I've got my plan B. The problem with plan Bs and real side hustles is they dilute plan A, because in your head, you're sort of saying, well, if this doesn't work, I'll do this. And what you're basically doing is giving yourself permission to not go all in on your main goal. And I actually think, you know, and Gary Vaynerchuk, as good as he is, he's a guy that's got a big following and he's probably pushed it out there. Everyone needs to go off and do, you know, their side hustle. He's always out there saying to people, go off and do a garage sale, make a bit of money there, this and that. I actually think, Phil, when I look at people that are successful, they became obsessed and myopic with one thing first, right? And they pretty much became the best in their field. And when they became the best in their field, they're on the shopping list. Whether you're an agent, you're a mortgage broker, whether you're a lawyer, whatever. Once you get to the level of being what I call, you know, pinnacle, you're on the shopping list. And not only that, when you're pinnacle, you get a better rate because people will come to you and you say, that's the deal, right? But what you should be doing, and I want to, you know, distinguish side hustle from income streams, what I think is obvious is it makes a lot of good sense to actually have income streams in various sources coming in, because there are times where you're going to have one income stream that ain't going to be doing well. I mean, I'm the classic example. I mean, auctions right now, or public speaking, right? So you turn around and you say, hey, what am I going to do? Am I going to go and get my job start allowance, or am I able to make a living out of something else? Which I'm fortunate enough, and like yourself, property has been, I mean, Phil, at the end of the day, we could go on, we can talk about property for ages, but the truth is, property is the only thing I know that you can make money while you sleep.
Yeah, you know, I love properties. It's, you know, I've been fortunate. I've been a very fortunate property investor, and whether a lot of that's just luck, mate, or you know, understanding what I'm doing, and I wouldn't claim that I do, but you know, I'm a journalist. You know, I'm probably one of the most fortunate journos in Australia, is that I get to dial into the best minds in real estate right across the nation. You know, it is a great level of access, but you know, that there is something that everyone can emulate and replicate. You know, good people are happy to share their time with you if you're sort of seeking advice or information. So, you know, us as people working in real estate, we make ourselves available, and the best agents I know are highly engaged and connected. They're helping build better agents in Australia. They're helping to cultivate the next generation of talent within the real estate industry, and that's one of the great reasons why I like being part of it. But you know, moving on to our next story, Tom, mortgages plays a big role in how markets move. Access to credit, when you think back of the last couple of years, it's been a lot tighter. Property markets have slowed. They bounced back a bit the sort of last 6 months after the last federal election. But even though the banks loosened some of their serviceability requirement to make it a little bit easier to secure credit, it's starting to tighten up a little bit under the current COVID-19. And there's a couple of stories here on the advisor.com.au. One was CBA to move minimum repayments on mortgages, so principal interest mortgages. So whether you're paying more than what you were required under your contract, they've just automatically said they'll just direct debit whatever the contract amount is. So that's a cash flow play for a lot of people, property investors, for example, but good for real estate agents to know. But the key point here, and this is a story that says NAB clamps down on serviceability. So NAB is leaning on mortgage brokers now more than ever before to actually prove genuine serviceability in order to secure finance. So they're conscious that, you know, employment rates are spiking. People might be underemployed rather than unemployed. So they're really leaning on mortgage brokers to make sure they can prove genuine income from borrowers in this current market. And I think you'll see a lot more of that moving forward. So what that does to the market, you know, there potentially might just be less people out there looking to buy, but hence the reason why they need to look at some of these other ways to stimulate the market, like, you know, stamp duty breaks on new purchases. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's Phil. Anytime a bank throws another layer of barrier to entry of a loan, two things happen. The first thing is that someone might not actually buy, or the second thing is they'll actually buy something at a cheaper price because they won't be able to go to that level. And that essentially takes a player out of the marketplace at a particular price point. And it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, and whether other banks apart from National Australia Bank actually follows suit. But I do expect the banks to actually just sort of put glasses on and look at things a little bit more tighter in this current environment. They must be aware that apart from the unemployment, they must be aware that people are also getting paid less.
Yeah. And Tom, look, I'm keen on your views on this. Let's chat very quickly about the business of real estate. Now, any good agent is highly connected and engaged across a referral network. Mortgage brokers, accountants, their property management areas, buyer's agents. What are you seeing the best agents doing now in keeping connected with mortgage brokers to make sure that they know who's doing what, how they're doing it, and they're opening up their network or their supply chain to potential business coming in? What's the best doing, mate?
Well, the most intelligent agents of the lot, Phil, what they do is they pick up their business a lot from what I call connectors and spheres of influence. They simply don't just rely on a single entity or a single mum and dad to actually contact them. They know that there's a mortgage broker that might have 1,000 clients in their portfolio, and they also know that that mortgage broker is having conversations with those clients. Some of those conversations with those clients right now would be, hey, can I ask you, what's the situation here? We might have to sell. We've got a 6-month freeze on our loan. What does that mean afterwards? The conversations that they have actually will help the mortgage broker know who is a potential client for an agent in the future. And what we clearly know is the collaboration and partnerships of agents and mortgage brokers has improved and has increased over the last few years, to the point, Phil, that often a real estate agent will take a mortgage broker to a listing presentation. For those that don't know what listing presentation is, here is when you're actually pitching for the business, and they'll actually say to a vendor, Mr. Vendor, I'm letting you know that the reason I brought the mortgage broker along is that when we have a buyer, we're going to make sure that that mortgage broker is aware of the buyer. They might actually have a relationship, and we're going to be able to work out how much they can actually borrow and help them borrow as much as they can, because the more they can borrow, the bigger the chance that they're going to be able to put an offer at the higher level on your own property. And, real estate agents have got to do things to differentiate themselves in a very competitive marketplace. And the relationship with a mortgage broker has certainly been one thing that people are using to stand out.
Yeah, that's good counsel. And, if you don't have a relationship with a mortgage broker, if you're a real estate agent, how do you go get one?
Well, if you don't have a relationship with a mortgage broker, what you should do is, it's called the most basic of basic forms. It's the number one piece of technology, and I just dropped it. It's this here, Phil. It's the mobile phone. You pick up the phone, and what you do is you say, hey, Bernard. Bernard's one of the guys that's won all the awards. He's a client of mine, and I know he's a...
That's Bernard Desmond, is it?
Bernard Desmond. You ring up Bernard Desmond, and you say, Bernard, I'd like to sit down with you for 15, 20 minutes and have a cup of coffee. I want to find out what's going on in your world, and I want to share with you what's going in my world. And it all starts with a conversation. And I've got to tell you, Phil, nothing happens without a conversation in business. And it appears the people that have the most conversations with the most relevant people and regular, without having commission breath, are the people that seem to do better in business.
So that's what's making headlines this week, Tom. We've gone through a lot of stuff there. Now, what's in the news next? What happens tomorrow? What happens the next day? Now, I've got, as we spoke about last time, we are launching we're unveiling the 2020 REB Top 100 Agents next week. So we'll have a chat about that when we get together on Thursday. So make sure you tune in. We're going to be...
So when are they being announced, Phil?
Tuesday.
Okay, so Tuesday they're being announced. This is, you're actually announcing the top 100?
Correct.
Okay, and then on Thursday, which is 2 days later, we might talk about that list. We might actually go over it. Most of these clients, most of the agents, nearly every REB agent has been through the real estate gym program or has got their second in charge on the program now. So we're going to be able to talk about those because I'll know those people. Phil, in previous years, there's been a few people that have been regulars that have had their spots there and up there, and there's always been some new entrants that are going to come along. I'm really keen. It's had a good diversity in terms of gender. There's been good representations there of the females, and I also noticed there's been some people that have come out that have been new entrants. So we're going to really look forward to that list.
Yeah, we'll get stuck into it. And there's also some stuff coming out. So here at Momentum Media, we have a large sort of connected market intelligence business that's done a huge survey across our whole network, and that ranges from real estate agents and mortgage brokers and lawyers all the way through to the aviation sector. It's COVID-19 business insights through my business. It's a report that serves as a barometer for how business and working Australians are adapting to the changed working and social environment through COVID-19. Top line, for the numbers I'm seeing coming out of it now, and it's had 5,000 or 6,000 respondents. Real estate in particular is being hit hard, with 66% of participants seeing an impact on their revenues so far, and 83% indicating that their revenues will decrease over 3 months. Is the top line immediate numbers. That's a finger on the pulse of the REB audience. So that's a real number, it's real time, and that's a significant sample size as well. So real estate is hurting. So we'll dive into that and work out what the best agents can be doing to navigate through this as well.
Well, one thing's for sure, there's a lot of people that can press that submit button and get the JobKeep allowance by the sounds of it.
Yeah, you'd think so, right? You know, and that's, how's the fitness going on, mate? You getting a run around the bay run?
Yes. So fitness, Phil, what are we doing? We're doing every morning. I wake up roughly at around 6 o'clock and I'm at the bay run at 6:30 and I'm really enjoying it. And I actually feel even better about it because someone said to me that all the research says you can't actually get COVID-19 outdoors, very, very slim chance versus indoors. So I'm out there, I'm enjoying it. I've actually bought myself some Trx straps. I've put them up there against the a wall. You've seen the Trx straps?
That's just like that rubber stuff, right?
Yeah, that's that rubber stuff. And, you know, on the surface, like one of the things I thought to myself, with the amount of people, Phil, that are working out at home at the moment, like they've gone off and they bought rubber bands and they bought straps, and those that were lucky enough to actually go into Rebel and to department stores 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were able to buy weights and that. You can't buy any stuff now. That's all sold out, right? But there's a few things that you can actually get, like the straps. And I think to myself, will gymnasiums cop it when we come out of COVID-19? Because there is going to be some habits that people have adopted where they turn around and they say, hey, wow, I can go for a run. I can sort of do my TRX and my rubber stretches there. I can do a bit of my self-homemade gym. Will that be affected? I don't know. There's a social aspect to gyms. But Phil, I've got to tell you, at the moment, I'm liking it. You're missing volleyball. I know that you're a water polo guy, right?
Yeah, water polo. Yeah, we're not allowed to play. And all the pools are closed, right, as well. So training's a bit hard. You get to the ocean. I do like an ocean swim, but you know, I haven't been getting out much. I'm just making sure I get my walk into work and home, and can sort of clock up 10,000 steps a day doing that. I'm eating pretty well. I'm trying to avoid the crap, and I've been off the booze as well, right? So
you look like you've shed about 5 or 10 kilos. Am I right?
Well, I shifted probably about 5 recently, and I think a lot of that's just staying off the plonk, mate. You know, it's trying to just keep really mentally sharp. I don't want to wake up with a hangover, right? So you know, it's working for me at the moment. But you know, it's a sort of like bookend the start of the chat. It's a tough time for all, but you know, I think everyone gets to make their own decision about their relationship with COVID-19. And there's one thing you can do: you can control your behaviours and you can control your attitudes. So you get to choose if you want to be one of those people.
Well said, Phil. Listen, we're going to catch up again next week with what's making headlines. Looking forward to it, particularly the fact that we're going to be doing the REB. Love it. Stay well, stay healthy, and it's been an absolute privilege to have you on again.
Nice one, Tom. See you, mate.
Thanks a lot. Share this. By the way, guys and girls, press the share button. I particularly want to hear people hearing about our views regarding the stamp duty, about the great job the REI people are doing. They've been outstanding in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks in the way they've been lobbying government and making sure that tenants and landlords know what the latest is. Thanks so much, and signing off.